Welcome to For the Record, an unfiltered view on current trends and timeless advice for surviving in the aesthetics industry. Whether you're an injector, practice owner, sales rep, or marketer, it's time to set the record straight. Each week we cut through the chaos and showcase diverse perspectives and winning ideas from the best minds in the industry. I'm your host, Dr. Tiffany Hall, Chief Growth Officer at Aesthetic Record. Now, let's get started on this week's episode. Hey guys, welcome back for another episode of For the Record. And today we have a big treat, one that I've looked forward to for a few weeks. It's going to be a hopefully fun, exciting, hilarious episode. We have with us today Jessica Manges, who is a nurse practitioner and the founder of LUX Injectables in Clearwater in Miami. She's also an apparel queen, the Botox dealer. She is a aerial silks guru as well, and a yogi. And she's also a national trainer for Mint, for Prolinium, and for MERS. And she's really everywhere all the time on Instagram doing all kinds of national events and national trainings. She has, 115 something thousand Instagram followers, our most famous guest to date, if you will. And she's here with us today, and I'm excited to have her. So welcome, Jessica.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to talk to you today.
And if you guys are listening, you can't see this, but she has this fabulous pink hair and a pink suit on, looking very fresh. I envy your knack for color. I can't do it, but you look fabulous. So you said you had some headshots done today. Tell us about that. I want to know to start out here about getting your headshots. What are you taking pictures for?
Yes, so I needed new photos because I'm going to be in Tampa Magazine coming up. So they're going to be doing like the best of, and I was like, it's perfect to be in that issue. And I'm also up for nominations for Best of the Bay, Best MedSpa, and Best Instagrammer.
Well, you get our vote for Best Instagrammer because your Instagram is crazy. I remember a few years, maybe a year ago, when they shut you down, and it was like sheer chaos and madness. So I'm going to jump ahead to that right now because I was just thinking about this today. People like you, it's like a full-time job. I mean, you have crazy amounts of followers. How in the world do you manage all the things that you're doing plus running basically a full-time Instagram business?
So it definitely was a transition. When I was working for somebody, I could put a lot more time into the Instagram because I would come home, be able to put my videos and photos together, and I didn't have that side of running the business. So when I started my own business, my own med spa, definitely I had to really figure out where I needed to focus my time. But it's something I enjoy. So a lot of people are like, oh, you should let somebody else, take over the Instagram and take that off your hands. But it's something that really helps me creatively. So I've always loved to put the videos together. I love putting photos together because that's truly where I'm learning as an injector as well, because I can really see what I did with that person, maybe what I would change next time. So I just think over time, it really evolved as like helping me become where I am today.
Yeah, and I watch your Instagram feed. I watch everyone's Instagram feed all the time, and you see it evolve. I see you go from time with your son to, I have to tell you, I'm obsessed with your silk aerial stuff because I have no flexibility. I'm like, oh my God, how does she do that stuff? But I see your real life, which I think is very compelling. As I think about injectors in our industry who people fall in love with, it's because they fall in love with their real human side. Not only being a great injector, great with threads, but also having like a human element to you, I think is what it's what turns them on. I think it's what makes people want to come back and keep looking at your feed all the time. So you're doing a great job at it. Obviously the numbers prove that for sure.
Thank you. Yeah, I first started Instagram with my yoga Instagram. So I was really big into it after I had my son. It was kind of how I would meet other mothers. So we did family yoga. I became a huge yogi, and then I found aerial yoga. So I'm actually a certified teacher in aerial, and I started performing. So it was really a huge part of my life, and I would post all of my photos and videos from aerial and yoga. And then when I started getting a little bit busier as an injector, I'm like, I really need to focus on my career and building that Instagram. So it truly helped me transition because I was already keeping up with posting every day. I was already like figuring out how to put content together. And I always am around very creative people. So I think that helps me too.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you is, I talk to a lot of injectors, physicians, nurses, PAs, the whole gamut, and you're all creative. All of you have this knack in your brain that's like you're both left brained and right brain. I think about all of medicine. Our specialty is the one that's like you have to be left and right brain to survive here. But you're all creative. Like from an early age, where you're just like, I want to be an artist. I want to build and create and shape the world. Or is this like a thing that you found later in life?
I was always an artist. I was always different. So I was the one that wanted to wear something definitely more showy or neon or shorts for like graduation. And my mom would yell at me, like, why are you wearing that? But I was just a little bit more out there with my fashion and my hair, and slowly that just like evolved as I just learned to kind of accept myself, because of course when you're a little different than everybody, when you're younger, you kind of are like, oh wow, like I need to fit in. And now I realize it's really what put me apart from everybody else.
Well, if you guys haven't seen it, go to her Instagram right now to at Injector Jess, and then go to her website and look at this incredible picture of her in this like super sexy nurse's uniform. I don't know, it's fantastic. But I look at you and think, I'm a person who has done a lot professionally, but I have nowhere near the confidence. Like having the cool hair and the cool clothes and the all the cool pictures and things. I don't have that knack. I don't have that in me. I'm such a prude about things and so like self-conscious. So I always find people like you fascinating that you've got like this incredible confidence and ability to just go be your authentic self, and you don't give a shit about what people think about it. I love it. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, it definitely took time because I was a lot more shy. But when I started performing and aerial, actually, that really helped my confidence getting on stage, and just I felt good about myself. And then eventually it just like evolved as something that kind of like bloomed. So I think it does take time as well. But I just kind of knew early on that I love makeup, I love fashion, I love celebrity, transformations, and I love reading the gossip magazines when I was little. So it was me.
When I come on stage, I'm like a Sasha Fierce, like Beyonce. When I'm on stage, the lights come on, I'm fine. It's not in my regular everyday life. I'm like, oh gosh, my midriff is showing. Oh no, my cleavage is too low. I'm a crazy person, but you, however, are obviously not nearly as prudish as I am. Thank goodness. But back to like your start in medicine. So you're this artist growing up. You've got this fun style. You're doing your own thing, your own person. How do you decide of all the careers in the world to become a nurse practitioner, which is very much a I don't know, standardized kind of career, very very rote memory kind of thing.
I agree. I first my major was chemical engineering because I actually wanted to make makeup. And so I knew somebody who did that. They created for Maybelline, and they were a chemical engineer. And so my brother was in engineering as well because I'm from Ohio, and I went to Akron University, and they're known for their engineering program. And while I was taking those classes, as time evolved, it was definitely a little bit harder with all the math. And there was a lot of men in the class as well. And so my roommate at the time was like, well, I'm doing nursing. And I'm like, okay, I'll do that. And my mom also kind of like talked about it too. So I actually really didn't love nursing when I was about to graduate. I didn't love going into the hospital. So I decided I would still try it out because I graduated with my bachelor's at University of Tampa, and I was working at Tampa General. And so once I had a little bit more autonomy on the floor and I wasn't a student, then I kind of liked that role a little bit better. But I had realized when one of my professors had told me she was doing Botox, and at that time, I really didn't hear a lot about Botox. There weren't med spas on every corner like there are today. And I was like, oh, what does that do? She's like, oh, it helps with your wrinkles. So immediately I was like, that is what I'm doing. And so I literally enrolled in my nurse practitioner program, which at the time Tampa General would pay for your master's degree, but you had to work full time as a nurse on the floor. So I worked 7 days a week for 2 years so I could get that.
But you got it all paid for?
They totally paid for my master's degree. So I had to work full time, which was crazy because I was doing a 16-hour shift, a 12 and an 8 while getting my master's degree. And then they wanted a year from me after. So that year I still worked as a nurse and I was looking for jobs, and specifically I just wanted something I could do the injectables. So I was looking in dermatology, and I would say at that time there weren't a lot of med spa jobs, definitely no full-time jobs. So I took a dermatology position. So that's actually was my first nurse practitioner job. But I would say I've always been a very caring person. I'm very empathetic. I'm a Pisces, and I'm totally, if you look up characteristics, I can feel people's energy. I can feel when they're sick. I can feel if something's going on with them. So I definitely believe like the career path was perfect. And then when I realized that it was going to be a little bit more artistic, when I started injecting people's faces, that's when the magic happened.
Well, and you've had a pretty fast, I say fast, maybe not, doesn't feel fast. Like, I feel like in the past 3 years, you've been everywhere. You know, I knew who you were before, but really in the past, I think probably 3 years, maybe even 4. I feel like you're everywhere all the time. I see you on things constantly. So at what point, you know, you've opened your own clinic at this point, right? Your own medical spa. When did that happen? When did you decide to go branch out on your own and say, I'm just going to be a boss and own my own spa?
So that happened last year. So after I worked for multiple med spas, because at one point I could only get like part time or a day at one med spa. So at one time I was working at 4 different med spas so that I could, have more hours. And it was more of I would say I have a little bit of like an obsession or addiction with doing it because I love it so much that I was like, okay, I need more people to inject. And that's what really made me a great injector, because each place had different products, different tools, different owners, different people coming in. So I really had to step it up because I had to be able to do whatever I needed to do with whatever was at that spa. And that's what really made me very versatile. And after I pretty much started my Instagram, Injector Jess, when I was working at a chain med spa. They had like 12 locations. It was like a starter place, but you did a lot of people. So I was doing very high volume. After 6 months, I was number 1 in sales out of 12 locations. So I started really getting that momentum going. And then I went to another place where I also was very high volume, and I was the only nurse practitioner there. So I was able to see all the patients coming in. So I was injecting 5 days a week. And I realized that I was building my own brand, which was Injector Jess, and working for other people and having to kind of come into their brand, and me having my own vision. It just comes to a point where I just got too big and I had to do my own thing, because your owner is going to be a little worried when their main provider is kind of getting to that point where they're known nationally and they feel like it just has to happen. And all of my Instagram friends that kind of are at the same place as me, it all happened for us pretty much in the same year.
You know, I think what you just said is such a great lesson for people who are building their own brand. You know, I work a lot on the practice owner side. You know, with Aesthetic Record, we have so many med spas and so many clinics, and they ask a lot about that. You know, do I hire the rock star? Do I hire the person who's coming in like an Injector Jess who has a massive following? And I'm like, well, if you do that, just know that at some point Injector Jess isn't going to be here anymore because she's built her own brand. So when you hire, the Sam Walton of retail to come work in your five and dime, prepare for Sam Walton to outgrow you. It's just the way it works. And I think it takes a lot of maturity too on your end to say, this is no longer the best fit for me. It's a steady income. I'm doing the hours I want to do, but I'm now going to hurt that practice if I stay. I'm going to hurt their brand long term, and I've got to move on and now build my own brand. So there's like this point, I think, to your, to what you just said. There's like this, like an intersection where you both have to decide we can't keep doing this. We're going to hurt each other long term. And I think people, they wait too long. They wait a year too long, and then everyone has this massive fallout, and it's, you hear all the drama in the industry, and so hates so-and-so, and they can't sit together at conferences, and because they waited too long to make that choice. So kudos to you for knowing to get the hell out when it was time to get out. Because I think that's a lesson people just, especially during COVID too, like knowing that we were going to go into shutdowns and things were going to happen and it was going to be this abysmal future, you still did it, and look at you. Like,
yeah, it definitely was scary. It was hard. It was all those things. And I had a lot of people coming to me too as well, like, wanting to be a partner, helping me with this or buying into the practice. Because I will say at that time, I didn't have the capital as some of these big med spas did. So I was worried, like, can I do this on my own? But I started really small out of like a little salon suite. And within a couple months, I was able to, invest money into my new place and get a larger place. So it happened pretty quickly because I just committed, and I was worried because I'm like, oh, I'm this really well-known injector and I'm injecting out of this small room. Like, are people going to say something or it doesn't look good? And nobody even cared. It was like, they're just like, okay, I'm here, do what you do. So I realized that they were coming for me, and they would always kind of continue to come for me. And I think you had to get over that too as well, because when I left the practices, I was actually at two when I kind of then pulled into my own thing. I was worried because they had all of my patient information. Because as the owner, you get all of their phone numbers, their email, so they can mass send them their specials, and you know how it is. And I just was like, screw it, you have to do it. Who cares? We'll come for you if they want to. If not, you'll make new patients.
I think that's the way you got to be. But the one room thing that you mentioned, it's funny because I just had this discussion last week about a person who started a med spa and they bought everything. They bought the lasers, they bought all the equipment. They went full guns a-blazing, and they lived in fear for 6 months. Like, we're gonna have to close the doors. I can't afford to like feed my family because I'm paying laser payments. I'm paying for products on the shelf. I'm paying for all the retail. And so I think there's a part of this where for every one person like you who did it the small way, to start small, manageable, you have 15 more who built a Taj Mahal and they can't pay their bills now. So, it's, you got to pick your poison, right? You got to pick the thing you want to deal with. And so I'm a big fan of starting small, making your money, getting your profit, and then going and investing and going bigger.
I completely agree. I have not got any lasers yet. I mean, maybe eventually, but as soon as I moved in, of course, everybody was asking me every week, like, oh, what else are you going to get? Are you going to hire anybody else? Are you getting other injectors? And it was like kind of bombarding me. And then I watched my other friends, and of course you kind of compare a little bit, like, oh, well, they hired these people and they bought this and they bought that. And I just decided that I was going to stick to what I was good at. My niche is PDO threads and, facial balancing. And I was just going to do that. I wasn't going to hire anybody yet because I was, learning about my new practice and how everything would go and the flow of it. So before really bringing on all these things, I really felt like it was important to at least get like a good foundation and at least like a year down at the practice. And one of the main reasons I really wanted to go on my own was so that I had the ability to travel when I wanted to. So if I want to go to a conference, if I want to, finally take off and leave for a week with my family, or trainings, because that was an issue too when I worked for people, is taking those days off. And now I have the ability to do that, and it's, you can run it how you want to.
Yeah. So you mentioned a few minutes ago about having investors and people wanting to come in with you in the beginning. I find that's a very lucrative thing. At least it appears that way on paper until it isn't. I have a lot of people who are, in your position, very well known that say, I want to go out on my own. I want to do my own thing. And so investors come knocking at the door saying, oh gosh, Jessica's brand's huge. If I invest in her, then I'll make all this money. And they, it's very enticing in the beginning to say, I don't have the capital and you do, let's partner up, which is, we all know who are listening, that can be a recipe for disaster. How did you decide to do it by yourself? Like, what was the point? And you're like, you know what? We're just going to wing it and figure this out.
I will say it was difficult because at one point it was every week somebody was calling me, whether it was somebody I met, a couple of times before, an acquaintance, or, my best friend just put it out there too, because she's very wealthy. Like, she would help me as well. And I feel like deep down, and my dad always told me, is I would never be able to work for anybody, which was true. Because I am a true artist. I'm too creative. I have to do it my way. I just deep down knew I could not work with anybody else. Like, I had to do it myself.
What's been the toughest lesson you've learned being on your own now? Because, being an entrepreneur, I don't own our company, but I feel like I do in many ways. It's like today, for instance, it's been a beat down all day long. I'm so mentally exhausted. So I'm sure that you have days like that as well. What's been the thing that has been most mind boggling?
I would say that the biggest thing I was afraid of owning my own place was dealing with employees. Like, just having to, because I knew it's a lot. Like, you have to obviously keep up with if you're booking people or, paying people, and just the office dynamics of girls together. So that was just a lesson in getting that all set up, as well as what kind of protection was I going to get as far as signing contracts with people that I hired, and just with anybody that you're doing business with.
Yeah, the legal stuff sneaks up on you. I had a person on our podcast, Sarah Allen. She has Skin Click. She's like, my entire day's job is spent on consents and questionnaires and legal meetings, because if I don't have all that done, it doesn't matter what we do here. Like, that has to be finished. And so I feel like that's a very unsexy part of our industry. Is, by the way, we have legal paperwork, stacked 2 feet high. You got to sign and have your med mal and all your off-label stuff, and it's a lot to do. And I think that's a part we forget about until you're the person whose name is on the door, and it's like, oh crap, I have to have this done, or we're going to be in a whole lot of hot water.
Yeah, so I would say that was the biggest lesson, is that really I had to get all of, the correct consents, and you need people consenting for COVID. You need them consenting for all of the different procedures. And then I realized I had influencers coming in, and I had to get them to sign paperwork, because you just never know. So now, luckily, I found a really good lawyer who is wonderful. I could call her daily if I wanted to. So that's been huge for me.
Yes. Note to self, guys, get a good legal team. I feel like get a good front desk person, a patient concierge, to do all the things you just mentioned, the booking and the rescheduling and all the cat fighting, and then get a good attorney.
Yes.
2 things you got to have. But transitioning here, you're like a top 100 injector. You're like a super famous injector in the injector lands, and you're obviously extraordinarily skilled. People who are listening know that. Everyone who knows your name. It's funny, you need no introduction. You and Talks Josh. It's like you're like Beyonce, could just say Injector Jess. You know who you are, but you don't need an introduction. But you've obviously become a very high level, very skilled injector, threads the whole thing, and now you're training. So when did you make the decision to really go all in? Because 3 companies is a lot to train for. To decide to be a trainer, what is the frequency of that? What are things that what do you love about doing that? Because I think people want to do it, but they're really scared of what it would mean for their career.
Yeah. So when I was working for the MedSpa before I went on my own, I was pretty much a Galderma account only. I did very high volume. I brought them to presidential status within less than a year. So I was a trainer for Galderma at that time, and it was something that she felt she needed for marketing. So she basically was like, you're going to be this trainer. And I went with the role, because I was like, well, I will be able to go to more conferences. And basically, I think it's good because it keeps me up to date with all of the products. You have to be involved that way, which is good because this is such a competitive industry. It's constantly changing, and if you are not somebody who keeps up with it, you're gonna you're gonna fall away because you have to be on it. And as a trainer, it really pushes me to be a better injector as well. So I have to be able to travel to wherever. I mean, people flow me to California to train them and be presented with any patient and know how to go through the assessment and inject them. So I can pretty much do that anywhere now. I can see any person and know what to do. So I also somebody who's very laid back and relaxed, and people can feel that. And I think I'm a pretty good trainer for that reason. I've been told I'm a pretty good trainer.
I'm guessing that you probably are a really good trainer, else you wouldn't keep doing it and keep getting asked to do it. So I have a feeling that that's probably true.
Exactly. So I just think it's a great way. I mean, of course, the marketing of it, that people do respect you a little bit more when they know that you trained for a company and that you know what you're doing. You've used all those products for years at this point. I've used every product on the market. So,
Well, I think that is a part of it that people get confused about. So obviously, I worked for Galderma for many years, and people become very loyal to a brand. You know, whether it's because of the personnel there, or the rewards, or to your point, conferences and getting to be on stage. And people become very tunnel visioned of like they can only inject that thing. That's their deal. They know that rheology. They know that adverse event. They know that cheap the V1, V2, V3 if it's Allergan. And you put them in a stage where they have to talk about something different, and they panic. At running a conference, we have to do CME, right? You can't discuss a product name. You have to kind of be a little bit more universal, and puts people in a very hot seat because they are only used to injecting whatever the thing is they train for. And so I feel like you have this great variety of knowledge where we can drop you off on an island somewhere and say, here's your Radius, good luck, or here's your Juvederm Ultra, or here's your Wrestling Lift. You'll be like, oh, I'll figure it out. It'll be fine. I think that's a unique skill that we're seeing less and less of now in the marketplace. People are becoming much more niched into a certain brand.
yes, I agree. And I feel like that's what really put me apart and what truly makes me a good injector and somebody who's a little bit more artistic is I can take any product you bring me and be like, okay, I'm trying it out, seeing what happens. Like, I'll put this in the lift, so I'll use this here. So that's what's fun for me is that when there is a new product out, I'm like, oh, I want to try that. I want to see what it does. So to me that excites me, and I think it's great. Like, I love, obviously the brands that I work for, they have supported me immensely, being a mid-level and getting me out there, amazing products. But you should be very versatile as an artist.
You said mid level. That's a dirty word, Jessica. We don't say mid level here. We're all on the same level.
That's true. Okay, what is the term now?
I don't know. So it's so funny because Chrissy Lennox has the extenders meeting, and she is an extender, but that's a bad word now too. So someone said, what do we call ourselves? Are we like advanced practitioners? Are we advanced practice providers in your APP? And that's an Allergan term. So who knows what you are? But I just feel like mid level. You guys. I look at there's like a group of you. It's like you and Audrey Rose and Injector Honey, Injector Bunny. It's Josh. It's this. You guys are like leading the industry. You're moving and steering things. Whatever you guys like and whatever you guys believe in, everyone starts doing. And so I feel like as an industry, for so long we said you have to do research, be on podium, do these heavy hitting clinical studies. And if you do that, you'll be the one who decides what the industry does next. That's not really true anymore. It's whatever the 10 of you say we should do, we all go do it. It's like you're kind of changing the industry in a different way that mid-level just seems very unfitting to the impact that you're having. And I think right now the MedSpa, quote unquote, MedSpa industry is like 68% of all revenue generated in aesthetics comes from a non-core person. And of that, more than half is a non-physician. So if you're listening to this and you think you're mid-level, you're not. You're top level. I'll put that out there for you. But moving right along to threads. I had a call today with somebody for our conference. They're like, oh, I don't know about getting threads. Threads don't really work. Threads aren't very effective. I'd rather be injected. We all know that's not true. So tell us more about threads and why, if you're an injector listening to this, you should cross the golden bridge to Threadland.
So I learned threads because I actually, when I first started injecting, I was taught to use cannula mainly. So we were using cannula lips and cheeks and he had 12 locations, so he was trying to keep the rate of like bruising down and any complications. So I was really good at it. I would say, like, when I first started posting on Instagram, there really weren't a lot of injectors on there when I started. I don't even remember anybody using a cannula. And so when I did start like getting more known and my videos were being pushed out, I think that's why, is because I was a little bit more forward in what I was doing. And when I got hired by one of the owners, she was like, "Hey, there's these PDO threads, and I heard you're really great at cannula. I think it would be perfect for you. Why don't you come in she said once a month." So I literally go in and she's like, "Okay, you can work today." And after the end of the day, she's like, "I want you to come every week." So she could see the difference in me between her other provider right away, and just like the volume I was doing and how much I was using. So I did my thread training. I did 2 people in my training. And after that, you're thrown on your own, like, okay, do this procedure now. So that's what I think is hard for people, is to convert from going to a training and really starting that and just committing and doing it daily. Like, people get a little scared, like, should I put this here? Should I put that there? So after I started like doing it more and more, because I really started liking it, because I just love I always love using cannula. I just think it lays the product nicely. I love the whole act of doing it. So I love doing threads, and I could start noticing the lift that I was getting, which is harder to achieve with just filler only. And obviously, as I've advanced over the years, I did work with a couple different thread brands. I've used, multiple thread brands. I then was trained on Mint. I went to like one of the symposiums for Mint, and I started using that. And then I could tell a difference between the lift from the threads that I was using from the prior ones, and it was amazing. I was like, this is a crazy result I'm getting. And so then I started incorporating filler with it, and it's just blown my mind. I still get like, after cases, like, wow, that's amazing. Like, to literally change something that you probably hated for a while, and B, to do the procedure in less than 20 minutes, for you to be a little sore for a couple days. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I've been on the fence. I want to do it. I feel like I've got really heavy brows because I'm perpetually tired, and I just see all these incredible results that you guys get, and I just think, man, I gotta go do that, because I have a face full of sculpture and a face full of filler, and I need more. I need you to rescue my face, basically. But the naysayers are out there. They're so. I look on Instagram and it's like a thread war every day about someone saying this doesn't work, someone saying this works so great, and it's just like constantly, and it's a bitter feud. So as I think about you, like the student becoming the teacher with Mint, as you go in and train people, what are the things that you find? Because I think people who are listening to this are probably saying the same thing. Like, well, Jessica, how do I do it and do it well? Like, are there any tips or tricks you can give us? Like a couple, like one or two key ideas here to help us become better at doing threads.
You have to commit to doing them. And after you do your training, start doing it. Start doing it on anybody, your husband, your sister in law, whoever you can do, so that you could start getting better at it. And you have to kind of creatively think. That's what's hard about threads, is it's different vector patterns for each person. So that's hard for people sometimes, like, oh, well, why did you change up that pattern for this person and this person's that? So you want to really just look at the person and lift their skin, like, oh, if I pull this up here, does that look better? And keep assessing that patient after placing. So after I place a couple threads, I sit them up, see what it looks like. Okay, I need to add more in here. And so after you play with things for a while and you do it over and over and over, that's when you start realizing what it does. So I think the biggest takeaway is just to commit to using them. because there are people that I train and then I leave and they just like go back to their old ways. They really didn't start using it and then they kind of lose it. Even like one of, my best friends that I train, like she's like, I just don't do them a lot. It's just hard for me to kind of really move away from using the filler. So somebody could use a lot of filler where I'm thread lifting them because I'm basically repositioning the fat pads. Using your own fat pads is kind of that volume instead of putting more filler in. Then I'm looking at you and going, okay, where do I need to replace the volume loss? Then putting filler in. So I do things a little bit differently that way, but I feel like you don't get that look of, overfilled. It looks extremely natural. So it's more natural because people get afraid, like, am I going to look overdone with threads? It is one of the most natural treatments I do. It just looks like you better. It deposits a lot of collagen into the subcutaneous tissue. So what I really noticed when my patients come back in like a month, a couple months later, is that everything about their skin has changed because of that. So I believe in it because I do it every day and I see people come back. And like I said, I'm still blown away by what they do.
Well, I think every time I hear a negative result of anything, having sold filler and toxin for so long, you'd hear, "Oh, that doesn't work." I'm like, no, no, it works for everyone else but you. Maybe the problem is you. Maybe it doesn't work because you're not doing it correctly. I would have these discussions all the time. People would say, "Oh, Rest and Lift doesn't lift a cheek," whatever the product is, and I would say, I don't know. I've been to 20 other accounts this week, and they all had great results, and maybe something is wrong. So I think about threads in the same way. People who are on Instagram naysaying it typically are ones who don't do it every day. They're doing it periodically or once a month or here or there. And as all things in life, you cannot get good at something doing it sporadically. You either got to do it or don't do it. Like it's just it is or it isn't. But I think what you said in the beginning about it's much more, or it's a more artistic, different vectors. I think about filler for so many years, and you as a trainer, I'm sure see this every day. They get these, manufacturers for sure. They give them these grids or these, you're going to use this line and this injection spot. I use a V1, V2, V3. Lift has a contour lift in the lift lines. We have the grids for Kybella. We've given like this paint by numbers for so many years on so many things that when we say, okay, your paint by numbers is gone. Now you've got to really think about this artistically. I think people tend to not panic, but it's a learning curve because they're not used to having to think about, gosh, I have this whole canvas. Where do I even start with this thing? And so I think there is a difference. I think Cannula had a very similar thing. When we launched Cannula, I was part of that launch at Galderma, and they were like, wait a minute, this isn't a needle. Like I'm used to learning on a needle. Like what do I do now? And so Cannula took a long time too. I had folks who would come back and say, I've been doing it here and there, but it's too hard. I'm going to give up on it. I'm going to go back to my needles. Like, oh, if you could just commit for another 2 weeks and learn it, it's going to change your life. But they just couldn't get over the barrier to commit and do it. So, I'm here for the threads, Jessica. I'm here for the threads.
Oh, that's amazing. Yes, I agree. It really comes down to, because I have patients that are like, well, my friend said she got them and they didn't work. And there's just so many variables, as well as what threads did you place? How many did you place? So that's another thing I see. People just don't put enough in because they just don't know. Just like with filler, if you didn't put enough filler in, somebody would be like, oh, that didn't really work. I didn't really see much of a difference. So I definitely agree with that. And I completely agree. Some people are a little stubborn in their ways and they won't they just don't want to try new things. And you have to, because this industry changes. So you have to be able to change with it.
God, it's evolving at the fastest rate. And I say a lot, just dealing with, again, so many people with our software that the training doesn't keep up. We're evolving so fast that there aren't enough great trainers willing right now, especially with COVID, to go out and train, that the industry is taking off and leaving our skill set or our ability to learn, our ability to get hands-on training. We've done so much with webinars and COVID and virtual, but I think it's hard to replace true hands-on, face-to-face. You sharing a patient with me, we're looking at her together, we're looking at her assessment, we're doing her threads together. I think that you can't replace that. I don't care how good your virtual is, you still need to have hands-on training. And this year alone, we've launched 3 products in the industry. They just approved Tear Trough, last week with Allergan. So it's just going to keep going and going and going. And we got to catch up, folks. We got to get ready to try new things and be different. But at the same time, adverse events are changing, and we're having to learn new things here. And skin of color is becoming a more thing. Genders and fluidity, learning how to do both. There's just so much happening that it's a lot to take in. It really, as a conference planner, it's a lot. Like, we don't have enough time to cover all the topics in one conference. There's no chance we can get through all of it. So,
No, I bet it is true. You, as a trainer, like where I can go into somebody's practice and go through, 8 patients with them. So the people that I've really trained, like where we were like all day doing patients back to back with threads, they're doing amazing. One of the girls I trained like tripled her income since I left.
I want to talk about that because you said you were a very high volume producer, which I have no doubt. How, like, what is that? So if I'm a provider and you're a provider, we're in the same practice, same patient base, same everything. How come you're so much better than I am? Because I always find that to be so interesting that some people have this knack to just convince you that the things that you need, you actually need, and you should buy them. Like, you actually need to have this thing done, and others just can't do it. They don't have the knack for it. They're not good salespeople, if you will, or good educators. What is your secret sauce to getting people to buy all these things and do the treatments?
I think I'm a very real person, so they could feel that I'm genuine and I believe in what I do. They follow me typically on social media as well, and I post me doing the procedures. I have some people that are like, I followed you for 2 years and I was worried to get it, but after watching it, like, I'm ready. I've watched you do it like 100 times. So they just sit there and they're like, I trust you, do what you want to do. So that's like what a lot of people say is, okay, I'm here, and I'll just go through with them, like, what bothers you. And then from there, I explain what I think would be best and what would give them the best result. And you have to be truthful because of expectations. So you have to let them know, like, you're going to have to continue to do this, just like dyeing your hair. Like, to keep up with pink hair, I need to go get dyed every 1 to 2 weeks. Like, if you want to do your nails, you got to keep up with that too. So it's a commitment, and it's something that I tell them it's up to you if you want to keep up with that or not. And so I think I'm just very truthful, and I do have like the kind of knack to be able to talk to people about money as well. And I think some providers have a difficult time charging patients and asking them for a certain amount of money.
Yeah, that's always a big one. It's like coming from the hospital for sure. If you're used to working on orders, now you're in charge. You're used to having some support staff around you. Now you're the sole provider doing the charting, the check-in, the janitor work, all of it. And then also you have to ask for money too. So here's a third level thing. That's a lot for people to take in. It's a much different career shift for many people. But if I'm an injector, a person wanting to learn threads, do I come train with you at your office? Do you do whole day trainings? Do you fly out to my office to be with me? How does that work for you right now?
So right now, as it's evolved, it's been a little harder for me to fly to everybody, but I still do that. So, if necessary, I just have them text my assistant. And then I also do block off usually about 4 hours if somebody wanted to come into the office and train. So I just try to fit that in my schedule with patients and, traveling for different events. So I'm trying to get them to come here a little bit more often because it does help me, because it is a lot leaving my family. I have a 6, about to be 7-year-old. His birthday's next weekend. And as the practice is evolving, I'm seeing that I do need to be here a little bit more frequently. So summer I took off, a couple weeks here and there, but I've been at the office like 5 days a week for the last couple of weeks, and I could see just like the momentum of things kind of growing. And I felt like at one point I was traveling a little too much because I wasn't able to really focus on my practice and myself. And so that is why I kind of transitioned into people coming to me more.
So you're a working mama. I'm a working mama. I just thought about this morning. My mom guilt is overwhelming. It crushes my soul some days that I have to like leave my kid at school all day and after school care and go to work. And I'm, when I come home, I'm still busy working. How do you deal with all the mom guilt? Because I'm sure that you're like a super busy person with clothing lines and practices and training. Like, you're as busy as I am. How do you balance that without making yourself feel like crap all day like I do?
I set aside time that I will hang out with him, and of course on the weekends now I really try to do stuff with my family. and put aside as much as I can. You know, you own a practice, you have to have be available every day, but I try to book trips where it's just family time, and you just have to make it a priority. If you don't make it a priority, then you will start getting a little guilty, but it does happen. Luckily, I have an amazing partner who has always for me, and he has no problem watching my son when I travel for any events. He's always like so supportive, like, go do that, hun. I think you should go. And I see other women where their husbands, like, they can't even leave for 2 hours because they're calling them, where my partner lets me like do what I need to do to be where I'm at today.
Honey, that's why I'm divorced right there. You just nailed it. Because I couldn't, no, I've got a great one now. Boy, it was a rough go for about 7 years there. But I think what you just said about having a partner is so true. And even in business, I think about at work, having a great person who's always there, your steady Eddie at home and life, assistants, whoever. You got to have people on your team who are rooting for you and who are making it easier for you to do the things you have to do, not harder. And I think, unfortunately, for women who are young and successful, it's often people making it harder for us. They like to put barriers in front of us, but you've got it figured out with a good partner. So if he has any brothers, have him call us.
He does.
Inquiring minds want to know. No, I'm kidding. We're not going to pimp you out on our podcast, I promise. But yes,
I'll post his story.
yes, just so you guys know, he had her camera all set up for her. He had to make sure everything was perfect for her so that she could start her podcast. So he definitely is clutch, no doubt about it. Well, as we kind of wind down our back half here, I do want to talk about Botox Dealer because I need to buy one of your shirts. They're so cute. But I see you on with Erica doing things. Erica Berry, her people get your shirts on her Patreon channel. You've got them kind of everywhere. Is this thing still going? Is it going? It looks like it's growing. You're getting more and more things in your store. Tell us all about that because I think it's super fun. And I want to become a Botox dealer. I want to wear your shirts.
Yeah, so the Botox dealer, one day, because I was big into yoga, there was a shirt and it said yoga dealer. And so I was like, I'm gonna make Botox dealer. So I literally like made the shirt, put injector Jess on it, and I'm in Tampa, so I go out here and there and would be wearing the shirt. And like people would be coming up to me like, oh, you do Botox? Like it was just very catchy and nobody had it. So of course, like shortly after I posted them, I saw a local like person that also owns a plastic surgery center make the same shirt with their name on it. And I was like, nope, I'm the one who started this. So I was like, I'm going to mass produce them and post on my Instagram and show you. So I did, and they were such a hit. All of the girls like posted for me. I had like people asking me from other countries to ship them. So it started to get a little bit much because, it's another thing that you have to keep up with, sending orders. So my wonderful partner was packaging all of the shirts, sending them out. And with training, so I started to, when I was doing training. So one of the trainings I did in Canada, there was like 12 girls, and I brought them with me because she was like, please bring them. She bought them all for the girls. It was so cute. We did this like big photo all wearing them. And so I decided like, wow, I should really like incorporate this anytime somebody trains with me, they get a shirt. So Erica does Patreon, which I don't know how she keeps up with that. So I tried to do Patreon too, and I couldn't keep up with posting every week. So she wanted to give her people a t-shirt if they were with her for I think like 6 months or something like that as a present. And so I started like shipping them to her. She eventually converted to doing her own because I got too busy to keep up with it. But I still have some. I made like tie-dye ones that say lip dealer. They're super cute, and that is something that's still, I think I will definitely, as I grow a little bit more and have more staff that can help, because I've always obviously loved fashion, kind of keep up with something that has to do with like injectors. So, but thank you.
Just hire an extra body. It's no big deal. Hire an extra person on there. You'll be fine. As a person who hires people, that's not true. Hiring another person is like getting a new family. It is so much, it's a lot of work, onboarding and teaching and training. But no, I think it's such a, I hate the word cute. It's a terrible word, but they're so stinking cute. Like you want to wear them. Because to your point, people are like, oh my gosh, Botox either makes total sense to them. But yes, I agree with you. The Patreon channel, how do they have the energy for that? My gosh, between their TikToks, their Instagram, seeing patients in their clinic, trainings, doing all these webinars and things, and also doing that as well, I just get tired thinking about it. I really do.
It amazes me. I mean, that's what I think about when I look at some of my friends. I'm like, how do they keep up with all this? And I, like you're saying, it's like looking and people think that about me. And I feel like I'm behind. I'm not getting everything done. There's just so much to do. Obviously, I would love everything and be on every platform, but like you said, you have to, hiring people is a lot of work. The more employees you have, the more work it is. And when I was having one of my assistants like doing all the t-shirt stuff, I was having her run around like half the day doing this, and I'm like, okay, I gotta reel it in and have us focus on, my MedSpa and the injection. So, but you kind of figure it out and what you like to do. And I would like to say I was one of the first injectors on TikTok too, as well, because I remember being on the platform and not really anybody was on it, and just like making my videos and posting them to Instagram. I have definitely went through a lot, because when my Instagram got hacked, I also had an issue with my TikTok too. So I was like getting millions of views on my videos, and then all of a sudden I was like blocked. I couldn't post for 2 weeks. And then once that block came off, because people can report you, they could say there's blood in the video, or it was, you never know. Anybody can report things, which I think needs to change, because your competitors can report videos, posts, and Instagram just uses like this bot that goes through and decides what it wants to do on that level. It's not even people looking at it. So I had that issue trying to figure out with TikTok too what was going on.
Well, I think what you just said, though, is true for medical and nursing boards, also the competitors. That's why I'm such a fanatic about having all your paperwork done, is because I think the same exact thing that they do to you, they like come at you from all angles, right? They go after your Instagram, they call the nursing board and say, Jessica's doing things incorrectly. She's breaking rules. She's not doing this right, that right. And they have to come in and they have to investigate, right? They have no choice. If it's medical or nursing boards, they have to come in and they have to question you, look at all the things, turn over all the leaves. So you have to have everything so buttoned up, because if God forbid they found something, inadvertently, that you just didn't even know you were doing, then it's your head, not a stick. We have, I think right now, because you said it's so competitive here in the marketplace, it's so competitive that there is no room for error right now, like zero room for error. And I think Instagram, like, it's weaponized, because like for you, that's a massive part of your brand, your following. Like it's, you've got an Instagram following that's like monetizable to a very large level, and just to have it shut down, I mean, someone's messing with your livelihood, and they can do it because, to your point, there is no accountability there. It's like some anonymous person says you're doing something wrong and they have to investigate it and shut you down. I find it baffling as well that they have no one to answer to.
No, it's true. It was definitely devastating. It was hard, and then I had to go through like the emotions of, well, your Instagram isn't everything, your social media, like you're more than that. You're an amazing provider. People will still come to you for referrals. But of course, like I use it for a platform for trainings and national and international level. And so that was the hardest part of it. But I was amazed by the support that I got from so many different people. Like I had Dr. Subio reposting me, and just, Shino Bay. So it really made me feel so loved, and I was starting to really like, okay, it's not coming back. And one day I went to log in after I really stopped trying, because I couldn't get a hold of anybody, because it was when the election stuff was happening with Trump. So I found out that nobody was really in the office and Instagram answering anything. And I happened to have it happen during that time. So I just had to wait. and you just had to have faith. And I tried reaching out to so many different people that I knew to help me, and it was a dead end. And then I knew some people it happened to, and they got it back the next day. So it was really hard. I had to wait months. And during that time, there was a lot of people saying stuff to me like, oh, so and so might have reported you, or this person might have reported your post. Because I guess I'm not a person like that. I'm not a mean person. I am competitive in a level like where I want to be my best self, but I don't think about doing anything mean to people like that because I'm creative and I know that I'll just fall into something and it will be new and fresh. So I don't worry about that. But when I realized that, I was like, that is true. I can't believe that people will stoop that low. But it's hard to say what it was at this point. But I got it back. I wasn't doing anything wrong, so
Well, I
it
thought you
just
must have been pro-Trump. I said, she must have posted some pro-Trump stuff because they shut her down. Because during the election, when it got shut down, was it either saying a pro-Trump thing or a COVID thing, and they all got shut down. But yeah, I think what you just said something that I think kind of piqued my interest about. I don't worry about everybody else and what they're doing. I'm creative. I'm the same way. I'm not a malicious person. I feel like if I ever have to steal or cheat or lie my way to success, the guilt would eat me alive. I have a guilty conscience anyway. I can't. If I do anything wrong, I would go tell you that is anything wrong. Like I'd be like, Jessica, I did this thing wrong to you, and I'm so sorry because I couldn't live with myself. And I don't think people understand that you can get ahead in life and not have to be a bad apple. You don't have to do these things that are malicious or terrible to other people. There's enough wrinkles in the world, honey. There's enough, bulldog lower faces, double chins, droopy tear troughs. Like we got enough problems out there for all of us. I mean, I don't inject obviously, but for all of us to join in and partake in the industry without having to cut each other's knees off. Especially as we think about women supporting women, right? We say that all the time, women supporting women, community over competition. And then, when it comes down to it, they report you to Instagram and try to get your livelihood taken away. It's just such a double standard that I sometimes am so baffled by because we're a very female heavy industry. Obviously, we see it more often here because it is so female dominant. But I'm glad that you got it back because I enjoy your Instagram and your TikTok. So I'm happy that you got it back. So that's good news.
thank you. Me too.
I'm sure you are. Well, I'm going to kind of wrap us up with, I'm on your Instagram on my computer here as we're talking about, you had this quote this week that really struck me about, the busy people are most responsive. And I think about rubber bands, the more you stretch them, the more they stretch. You're a very busy person and you're very responsive and you're on top of things and you're doing it all. Give us some tips on how to survive. Like, what do we do as an industry, as people who are coming up, new injectors, experienced practice owners, to just survive and keep growing and thriving?
Well, I took every opportunity that I was asked. So, of course, it's tiring. You work all the time, you work every day. But every time I was invited somewhere, any, training I could do, anytime I could learn something new or meet somebody new, I would always take it no matter what. And I think that really helps in just getting yourself out there, meeting as many people as you can. The more knowledge you have, the better you're going to get. So it's just one of those things that you got to work hard at. And I do think that the ones that really kill it in this industry are the hardest workers. So,
Yeah, I'd agree. It's funny this year of the conference because, I think, as you have all these faculty, right? There's 80 people as faculty. It's a lot of people. And I had several folks reach out this year that wanted to become part of the faculty. And I'm like, great. I sent back a note of here's what you're going to be able to do. Here's, the idea. Well, that's not good enough. I want something different. Like, you've never spoken on a conference in your entire life. You've never been on a podium ever in your life or trained another person ever in your life. And I'm coming to you with this incredible opportunity, and you're telling me that it's not good enough for you. Like, it shocks me because I see people like you, Josh starting out, all of you guys, you took opportunities wherever you had them to get better, to get your name out there, to learn how to speak and train in front of people. It's like everyone who's successful at some point had to start at the bottom, right? And kind of do the grunt work and learn and build and grow your brand. And so I think as people look at you, they think that you're like this overnight success, like, oh, you're starting out as this high level person. But I'm sure you did many things that were less than glamorous that you wouldn't do now, obviously, but you did back then because you had to build a brand. So if you're listening, guys, take what you can, take the chances that you can get right now to grow and build your brand because I feel like it all pays off in the end. But there's some snooty folks out there, Jessica. Snooty people who their egos won't fit in the door. It's shocking to me, and they haven't earned it yet.
No, I agree. I'm big about having to earn it. So even like my staff know, I'm like, you got to show me that you're putting in the work. And once you do, then I will reward you. So I'm somebody who keeps my word with that. But I don't know, maybe it's a generational thing too, because I do think that the younger ones coming up see like, oh, I could just post something and maybe tomorrow I'm going to be famous and do this. But even then, the act of what we do, it just takes time to really understand it. And I really do believe, because I've had people come, whether they're calling me about trainings, they literally never injected. They wanted me to train them. They said they're opening their MedSpa next month. And I'm like, you're telling me you never injected and you're opening a MedSpa? So I do think people think that this is like easy and anybody can do it, but it's more of like a needle in a haystack if you're going to be one that gets to this point because of all of the hard work, years and years of hard work that you have to put in.
Yeah, they open up as fast as they close down. You see that a lot too, right? The turnover is really, really high in the industry. And to the point that you made in the beginning, they're left with a laser, they're left with a big building and a rent payment, and now they're not in business anymore. And so I think that's part of the risk too, starting out, is if you go a little too big in the beginning and you're not ready yet, you've not caught up yet to what you've purchased in your skill set, it's a hard road at the beginning. But I like the idea of like having to earn it. And to your point, people who, I think about college professors. I was a college professor for many years after I'd finished with grad school and PhD school and things. And the person who's at the front of the lectern in a professor role or at a college has had to take years of classes and years of classes to ever get to be able to be the teacher. Even in a high school, junior high, to be the teacher, you take a lot of classes to become the expert in the topic. But for some reason in our industry, it's like, nah, I've been injecting for 2 weeks. I think I'm going to be a trainer now. I'm good to go. And I just beat my head against the wall, not because I love the zest, I love the zeal for it, like they're excited about it, but I feel like it leads to a lot of people training that shouldn't be, and there's a lot of danger in that, adverse events, bad outcomes. And as we all know, one bad outcome is our entire industry gets a black eye for it. I just think that there's a risk for all of us if people who are training haphazardly are not prepared for it and don't have the skill set to do it. So, I have that's a whole different podcast. It's probably a TED Talk if you want to see it, but it just makes me crazy.
Yes, you need to be humble.
Know your limits. Well, tell us what's next for you. Where do we see you next? What podiums are you on? What trainings are you doing? How do we find out your schedule?
Well, I really wanted to focus on being at my practice more for this busy season coming up. But I do have some events with MERS coming up and just, with my private trainings. And I don't know if I'm actually on any speaking, but I'm trying to figure out which ones I want to do. So I don't have definite dates yet on them, but you know how it is.
The lady has choices. She's got all the choices.
I'll always post about it, obviously, what I'm doing.
Well, tell us if we don't already know, which we all should, and if we don't, shame on us, but tell us how to find you on Instagram and on your website.
Okay, so Injector Jess and at LUX Injectables is my med spa, which I started growing when Injector Jess went down. So luckily now that one's almost at 13,000 followers. So I have both of them, which is amazing. And you can also go to, luxinjectables.com.
Yeah, guys, go check it out. Go check out her personal site because it is so stinking adorable. The picture of her and that, I don't know, Jess, it's so cute. I don't know. I'm so jealous of your personal site because I could never be that cool. But anyway, I digress. But you've been a great guest for the record. We've loved having you on today, and I'm fascinated by you, how hard you're working, all the things that you're doing. And I'm thrilled that you chose to come on to our show today. I'm very, very happy about that.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we'll put all of your Instagrams on our comment section so you guys can see it all. Go give her a follow. Not that she needs one. Trust me, she's got plenty. But go give her a follow. And we'll be looking for your next big podium so we can all come out and see you and support you.
Great. Yes. Maybe I'll be at one of your next conferences.
Yes, ma'am. You know what? If it's off of your busy season, come on down. We'd love to have you anytime.
Yes, I would love to.
All right. We will see you guys all next week for another episode of For the Record. Thanks, Jess.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks for listening to another episode of For the Record. This podcast is not intended to provide legal or medical advice. It's for entertainment, education, and information purposes only. For more information on this week's guest or to get started with Aesthetic Record, email us at info@aestheticrecord.com. Be sure to tune in next week for more fresh perspectives on disrupting the status quo and surviving in the aesthetics industry.